we'll move on.
Okay.
Oh, recording in progress. There you go. Okay, Rekik. So it's great to meet you today. Um,
Nice to meet you as well.
yes. I was looking at your resume. I was looking at your CV, and I was quite fascinated to see how much experience you had as a virtual assistant. Um, it seemed to me that you have been working at different places as a VA.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe tell me a little bit about how you got into being a virtual assistant.
All right, sure. So after I graduated, I started working as a social media manager. I don't know if you're familiar with EBS, the television program.
Yes, I've heard
So
of it.
yeah, so I used to work as a social media manager then. And then there's a company called MMCY Tech. It's more like an outsourcing company here in Ethiopia. So my friend used to work there. And she recommended me there. I got there. I started working as a sales development representative. And so since it's an outsourcing company, from the start, I was working virtually. My boss was in London. So basically, I mean, what I was doing to her was not like exactly as a what a virtual assistant does, but she was the business development representative. So I was working under her. I was doing the lead generation for her, reaching out for leads. I was doing cold calling, cold email. So I was basically doing the administrative side of it. And then I started working as an actual virtual assistant for another client. She lived in Norway. She was a life coach. So that's when I actually started doing, the email management and the basic assistant administrative side of it. So I've been working with her. I mean, I'm still working with her as a part-time. And so after that, since it was a part-time thing, I started working with different clients as a virtual assistant. And since every client is different, everything that you do is different based on the client you're working for and what they're focusing on. So that allowed me to know a lot of different CRMs and different platforms. So that's about it.
Okay. So what's your background in terms of like education? Can you tell me a little bit about your background?
Sure. I graduated in information science from Addis Ababa University. So IT, basically. And now I'm doing my master's here in Poland. I moved to Poland about a month ago. So I'm doing my master's part-time here as
Okay.
a management.
Oh, that sounds super exciting. And you speak really good English. So tell me a little bit about that. So, did you learn it in school? Like, how did you end up speaking really good English?
Um, yeah, school. I mean, not a lot of people know this about Ethiopia, but a lot of people speak English very good. You can say we learned it all from, I mean, I would say movies, music, and school as well. And we basically learn in English starting from grade 7. So we learn everything in English right after that. So it's easier for you to speak, read and everything in English after that. So
Okay.
it's,
Okay. So, tell me a little bit more about that. Is English kind of big in Ethiopian culture because you talked about watching movies in English? Is that something that's very common?
yeah, it is. So as I mentioned, everything basically switched to English starting from grade 7. So everything you learn is going to be in English. So, movies, I mean, one thing I noticed here and in Europe, I've been to Italy like last year as well, is that movies, almost all of the movies are translated to their language. Like if it's in Italy, it's in Italian. If you're in Poland as well. We don't have that in Ethiopia. So all the movies, the music, and everything's just in English. So a lot of people, I mean, including me, the accent and everything, I would say I learned it off movies and music. And also working with different clients and working virtually really does because I'll definitely be getting in different calls with my client, with my bosses, so that helps as well. But I mean, a lot of people, my friends and people I know, is very good in English. You don't necessarily have to go to like an international school, which we already have here, but
Okay.
that's
I think that's important for a lot of people that I meet. This is not something that's surprising to them, and a lot of people don't know that about Ethiopia. So it's kind of nice to talk a little bit about that. Um, so, uh, did you grow up in Addis, or like which part of Ethiopia did you grow up in?
I grew up in Addis.
Okay, you grew up in Addis. What neighborhood?
I don't know if you're familiar with it. Guleli, it's around Ngola Fabrica.
Okay,
It's
I,
like
I
past Piazza.
I've heard of it before. I mean,
Yeah,
the last time I was back, like Ethiopia felt so different because they like especially the like road construction, the stuff that they
yeah.
do. There's so much happening. Um, okay, and um, born and raised in Addis. So you were in Italy.
Yes.
How did you end up going to Italy?
So surprisingly, my dad is half Italian. I know I don't look
Oh,
like
no,
it, but
no, I kind of figured because your last name is Pascal. So
Pasquale. Yeah,
Pasquale, is that how you say it?
yeah.
Okay. So okay, I noticed. Okay,
So
interesting.
yeah, that's how. And my mom is actually a diplomat, so I've been able to like travel with her. I've been to Japan. I mean, it's a while ago, it's like 9 years ago, but I've been to Japan, I've been to Italy, Dubai. So I do like traveling. That's one of the things I like to do. So being here in Europe helps as well. Like it's easier to like travel to like different Europe countries once you're in it. So because my dad is half Italian, that's why I was like I have my family there, like my uncle, my cousins live in Italy still, so
That's amazing. That
yeah.
is not something I expected to find out today, but um, so in terms of like the work that you're doing as a VA, how do you find it? Like, what do you find interesting about it?
So interesting is like I get to learn a lot because especially when you're working with different clients and working as a virtual assistant is like it's not like the things you do are not like things you do every day. There's always something new. It depends on what your boss is doing. There's always something new to learn, new software to learn, new ways of dealing with things, new people to deal with. And it's just like you don't know what's coming every day. There's something new and different about it. So it's actually very interesting. And when you're as a virtual assistant, basically what you do is help your boss and help your client. And there's some sort of satisfaction out of that. Like you being there, you can see the result, how things are different, the fact that you're working with them and the fact that you're helping and how much easier their life is when you're working for them and with them. So I found it interesting in
Okay,
that.
tell me a bit more about that then. Like, let's say, how do you make somebody, the person that you're working with, how do you make their lives easier? Like, what kind of things do you do to simplify their lives?
Okay, so my current boss, as I said, she's a life coach. So there's different platforms that we use. There's one called Kajabi, there's one called Coach Consult. So basically, I handle that and her emails for her. So since she's a life coach, she gets booked like crazy with different clients. So the fact that, I mean, she's been what she told me is what I'm telling you. So she's been trying to like work on that, trying to like book all her meetings, reply to emails, while getting prepared on like the documents and everything she needs to get on this client calls. I mean, these are big people, they're paying big money. Her clients are like CEO of companies. She works with women specifically, and they're like when they book her, it's more like a 6 months plan or a year plan. And then she travels a lot because she also do not virtually, she also do like in-person coaching. So she travels a lot depending on where they're at. So there's also the traveling, like buying the ticket, booking the hotel, and also the receipts. I mean, she have to like work on that expenses and everything. So with all that, while still trying to figure out on how to help her clients, was just like a mess. So when I came in and helped with the emailing, with the scheduling, and I don't like necessarily book the hotels and like buy the ticket for her, but I will be the one setting up the rates, the dates, like telling her or like just preparing a booklet for her. And just making her life easier in a sense where now that I mean I've been working with her over a year now, so I know which one to prioritize. We're basically like working on it together. So I know what to prioritize. I know what to like. I can like I email like her now because I've been working for over a year. So the things that I have to handle, I'll handle so that she can just focus on doing what she does. Like she doesn't have to care about any other like tasks or like the administrative side of her job. Just focusing on coming up with the newsletters that we also have newsletter which she publishes weekly on her LinkedIn, and we also do email marketing as well. So she just have to work on creating that content and working for her clients and just not focus on any of that. So I do see the change, like because she's not more focused. I mean, she tells me that she's more focused on how she helps with her clients. She's not always, busy and overworked.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so how many hours, like you told me that you're part-time, so you're
Yeah.
doing all of these things. How many hours are you um, helping her with? Like in terms of to do all of these things, how many hours would it take you on average, would you say, in a week, for example?
In a week, I will take so I'd say like 2 to 3 hours a day. But the thing about the work with her, what's different is it's more like a task-based thing. So I can work on it on Saturday and Sunday, and it's okay. Like I might will have to work for like 2 hours from Monday until Friday because it's not something I have to do like on a daily basis because if it's the email, if like she uses softwares, a lot of softwares that help me do things like I don't have to like send emails one by one and everything. So it's more about setting up the things for her. And if something comes up, of course I'll help. But I would say it would take like 2 hours of the day or yeah, maximum 2 or 3 hours a day.
Okay. Um, okay, tell me a little bit more. I'm actually curious because you worked at an outsourcing company before. Um, what is your kind of impression of the outsourcing market in Ethiopia? Like what's happening in that space?
I say it's just starting because I mean when I joined MMCY, that was basically the only company in Ethiopia that was doing it. I think there's two or three more now. Um, I think a lot of people or a lot of these outsourcing companies are focusing more on the cold calling and telemarketing aspects of the job, like just like in India, Philippines, and everything. And this one, where to work as a virtual assistant, software engineers, and everything is just, I would say it's just getting started, but it's a good start because that there's a lot of, good candidates here. I mean, if back in Ethiopia, that can actually help a lot. And it's
Okay,
discovering it's usually like the freshly graduates are like better at this, to get started from the get-go and they can learn, you can teach them and it's easier. I would say it's easier because the people that are already working are not really familiar with the concept of outsourcing and working for clients abroad and everything.
okay. So you feel like the younger generation can pick up on it faster.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so in those kind of, I guess, telemarketing and cold calling, those are like big companies that need those services. In the virtual assistant space, um, and like software developers, maybe social media managers, those kind of things. Would you say that's still very early then?
I wouldn't say very early. I'm just saying like when we're talking about scale, the bigger scale is like the cold calling and telemarketing. But there is of course like digital marketing, social media manager, account managers, like an MMCY. There was he started out with account managers before anything else. So like there's a company called Cvent and they needed account managers like that do websites and also connect with the clients and work on it. So he started out with account managers. So I would say like that space it's still growing. I would say it's still growing. But there's a lot of people that can do it is what I'm saying. And there's a lot of people doing it independently as well from LinkedIn, uh, Upwork, and I
Okay.
know a few people that do that.
Okay, so they reach out, like they put their services up on Upwork, or they
Mm.
try and reach out to like to clients, and then, huh, that's quite interesting. And
Mm.
um, so what kind of businesses typically use virtual assistants from your experience?
Um, So I had different clients, like not even like the same. So I had, I would say, the ones that are doing it, like for my current boss, she's it's just herself, it's just me and her team. And she, of course, she have like different people that she outsourced for like maybe the marketing, finance, and stuff. But I would say, bigger companies, there are like bigger companies that not necessarily like being employed by directly by the owner or anything, but there are bigger companies that hire for mostly lead generation because that's one of the things that they don't really want to work on, the lead generation and the sales development representative role and business development representative. I mean, it's not technically like assisting, like managing the emails and everything, but more on the marketing side of doing the cold emailing, the cold calling, lead generation and stuff. I think there's more need for that.
Okay, so more businesses are interested in having uh, those kind of roles filled up. So
Yeah.
I guess to that point, is there talent in Ethiopia that does that too? Like, are there talent who can do that kind of work?
Yeah.
What, so tell me a little bit more about, for example, when you say lead generation, what do you mean? Like, what is that process, or what is the goal of that process as well?
Okay, so lead generation, like it depends on the company. So the company I was working for, what they do is they provide a service, which is they do like the cold calling, email marketing, and everything for other companies. So when I was doing lead generation, we were going through companies like what there was on LinkedIn and Upwork and Indeed. We were going through companies that had a job posting out for any sales development representative, lead generation specialist, or remote. So we would take that data, like the company name, the phone number, email, and we reach out to them. We do like the cold calling and be like, so we are is in this company and we do the same tasks such as cold calling, email marketing. So we're trying to reach out and see if we can work with you. So there's different platforms. It depends on the company you're working. There's different platforms that makes it easier for you to get leads. There's Apollo, there's Zoom Info. This is and LinkedIn as well. But the two I'm very familiar with. And I also worked for a clinic, like a laboratory clinic, and we do the lead generation for them. So that was just basically based on we were looking for hospitals and clinics in Ohio, Cleveland. And then you can just Google that as well. You can use Apollo, you can use Zoom Info and call them. So lead generation is basically getting the data for what the company does and then reaching out to.
Okay, fascinating. So, for example, for my business, if I wanted to uh, do lead generation, I would identify the type of people or type of companies that I want to sell to, then to gather that information, and then cold calling is the next step. So once the information is there, what's the next step?
So, I mean, not just the company, it depends on first you have to know the country, the city, where you want this from, and then you have to look for the companies that have job posting out for a virtual assistant, maybe cold callers and anything. Then after you get that information, then the next step is cold calling them because you have the number and also emailing them. Like you try to reach out through email and cold calling. And then the next step is going to be like the business development representative or your company or anyone that's there to sell the company. After you said that you're doing the cold calling and the emailing to set an appointment. Could be with you or anyone that's there to explain about your company. And then you set an appointment and then you move on from that. But I would say that's like the professional way to get to them is email or cold calling.
Okay. This is quite fascinating to me because as I'm building my business, these are some of the things that I think about. So, in terms of when you reach out, and you've done some level of cold calling, do you find that effective? Do people talk to you? Like, what has your experience been like cold calling?
So it's different. For example, for the clinics I was calling, I would say they were nicer because we were calling, the clinics directly, and it's usually the operators that you get. And we were offering lunch with their presentation. So I was just calling and saying, I was just calling, hey, my name is this, I'm calling from here, and then I'm just calling to see if I can schedule a lunch meeting. Do you guys do that? So if they're interested, my role is just to set the appointment because the person that's gonna go and introduce and present is that's gonna be his, that's gonna be his, what's the word for it?
Yeah, their
That's gonna,
responsibility is
yeah, his
responsibility. Yeah,
responsibility.
yeah.
So my goal was just to set an appointment. But when I was working for, the sales company and calling the people, I wouldn't say that the people were happier about the cold calling. I was like, the goal was to get 2 appointments per month, and we were like calling 100 or 120, people per day. Not all of them pick up because the numbers. I mean, you're probably going to be talking to from like the 120 people, you might be able to talk to like maximum 20 people because not a lot of people pick up. It probably goes through the voicemail and stuff. So it was just, it's a long shot. Cold calling is not easy, especially in America. People in Canada are nicer. That's like when I call Canadian clients, they're nicer. At least like they'll just say, sorry, I'm not interested. But like people in America, I understand they're really, really fed up with telemarketing. But again, it depends. So it depends on the position of the person I'm calling. If it's usually the CEOs, I mean, it still depends. Like the CEOs and someone that's just like up there, not really happy that I'm calling them directly. It's usually if it's a direct number, they're not really happy about that. But like if you get like from my experience, like the manager of sales or maybe the HR is a better person to reach out to and talk. And if you can actually get them through the company number, it's better than calling them directly. Not a lot of people are happy about getting calls directly to them as a cold call.
Okay, so like somehow you get their personal cell or whatever, and then you end up calling them. They tend to be a lot less happier than if you
Yeah,
know. So the challenge, I guess, is with trying to call through the company is the gatekeepers, right?
yeah.
So how do you deal with gatekeepers?
So the best one that worked till now is not tell them that you're calling for it's not that it's a sales call. Just be my opinion, what I just say is I'm following up on an email we sent him and I'm just trying to follow up on that. So that is more important than saying I'm trying to sell this and that. If it's an email, that means it's important. So they'll try to get you through to the CEOs.
Wow, these are like gold. These are nuggets. I'm like, okay, that's the Rekik
Yeah.
approved. You say, hey, we're following up on an email. There you go. I feel like a lot of cold callers are super interested to hear what you have to say. And I'm like, even now as we're talking, I'm like, this is gonna be amazing content. I'm gonna cut this and just put it with the title, like, oh, cold calling. Here's a tip from
Yeah.
Rekik. And that's actually a really good tip, like following up an email. So that's like your cadence then. You would send an email, you would cold
Yeah.
call, and then do you follow up? Do you have like a way that you're gonna follow up with them afterwards?
Yeah, so when we send emails, we usually use Salesforce or any other platforms. I mean, we're not going to send email one by one. So the good thing about Salesforce is you can see how many people opened it, for how long they opened it, how many times they clicked on it. So you follow up on those clients, the clients that opened it, maybe that went back and read it. So it's easier when, I mean, if they actually open the email, it's easier to do the cold calling. I mean, yeah, again, it's a long shot. It's usually a long shot, but it's the best shot you have. And it
Okay.
depends the companies. The lead gen really matters. And the softwares you use to do the lead gen and how valid it is.
Okay. So lead generation. Maybe talk to me a little bit about the different tools in that space.
Okay, so as I mentioned, LinkedIn, it depends on again what type of company it is, but LinkedIn is good. Apollo, it's like so it's just you can see the number, the email, the number of employees in the company. It's good, especially the paid version. Zoom info as well. But I heard Zoom info is like crazy expensive, but like the lead generation from that and like all the data there is just on point. And What else? We used Apollo, Zoom Info, and Google.
Okay.
So that's about
So
it.
you mentioned LinkedIn. So does LinkedIn have like some sort of a tier that helps you kind of do some of this? Like, or how are you using LinkedIn?
As I mentioned, when I was doing the lead generation for the sales company, LinkedIn is easier because you just have to search for the job post. Uh, like there's a way to filter the country, the city, and everything on LinkedIn, especially the paid version. So we just we just search for the job post that they have, if it's remote, if it's sales development representative, it's for lead generation, and then you get that off the company, and then you get the company you go to the company page, you take maybe the HR, the CEO, and everything. And that like it's a process. And then you have to take that and then go to Apollo to get their phone number because they don't usually have their phone numbers on LinkedIn. Maybe you can get an email, but it's not easy to get the phone number. So you take that information and go to maybe Zoom Info or Apollo to get the phone number and everything. And maybe you can get it off their website as well.
Okay. So you end up booking um, maybe 2 calls. That's like the goal. To call someone, you're calling like 100 something people a
Yeah.
day. And then if you can book a call, like do you kind of know how many of those would convert into being clients?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Do
mean,
most
you would. Yeah, because there is a commission for it. When you get a commission for the appointment you set, and then you get a commission if if it actually went through and they signed up with the company.
Okay. And if you had to estimate, like how, from the once you book these appointments, how many of them would convert? And percentage.
Mm, It really, really depends. It's not something you can like maybe you book six for 3 months and none of them go through, and then you book, let's say, maybe got lucky and booked for 1 month and all of them go through. It's not
It's
really
difficult
something
to
you can,
know. Yeah,
yeah,
it's difficult to know.
it really just
Fascinating.
depends.
Okay. Let's see. What else? I'm very curious. Like this is one of the things like I thought doing this one, I'm new to this space, so I'm learning a lot, so I'm very curious about it. Um I I did notice that um some people in Ethiopia are doing SDR work,
Hmm.
to like just focused on, the SDR aspect and then promoting that. Uh, do you so um, do people like are they in an office when they do that in Ethiopia? Are they in some sort of like already structured space, or is it like a work from home kind of situation? What does that look like?
When I was working in the office. It's not just a one person job, you know what I mean? Even though you're like responsible to do all those things, I think we were like six in a team when we were doing this because if I do the lead generation today, or maybe for a week, I'm gonna be doing the cold calling next week. So that like it's not because you can't do the lead generation, the cold calling and cold email all at one time, but you are responsible to do all this. So I think you do need a team for that. At least two or three people working together.
Okay, give me a second. This is what happens when you work from home.
That's okay.
Yeah. So there's like people in a team. They're all working in a team, one person. So you rotate what you do. Is it because cold calling is tough? Like if you're like, let's say you're cold calling every day, every week, or is it just maybe the account that you're working on?
Actually, cold calling. I don't know if I mentioned, but I've experienced working as a cold caller. It was for like a US company. I found that on LinkedIn independently. And w- basically, his entire team was in Philippines, but I was just doing the cold calling. He already had a dialer set up and everything. I was not doing the lead generation and everything. So, since I actually have experience doing all that in rotation, I would say the cold calling was much easier for me, like personally speaking. Just cold calling was easier because the lead generation was, I think, the hardest one. And since you already have a very good team instead and the lead generation is good, it was so much easier to get like leads that say yes to you and the dialer was already there. You know, everything was just set up from, I mean, the first one I was calling, we were just doing Zoom call. We were just calling them on Zoom. We had a number set up on Zoom and we were just calling them Zoom. We have to like write the number and everything. But like, I don't know if you're familiar with the like platform called France Pin. That was what we used for cold calling. So basically, it was a power dialer. So all the number and everything's just there. All you do is call. So we were calling like 300 people a day. I mean, most of them don't pick up, but you know, it's just you just hit start and it goes.
Tell me more.
And
Tell me more. I'm curious. Wh-
sure, so
What's
it's
a power dialer? What is this magic I'm hearing about?
so power dialer is so it's called front spin. Maybe like you can check it like later on Google and everything. So Paradise is like all the I don't know how. I think it's integrated from Salesforce. I'm not really sure how the back end works. But so all the numbers, there's like different lists created, and then you're assigned to a list that has like maybe 300 or like 200 phone numbers there, and you can have it so there's a way for a direct number and also an HQ, which is like for the company number. So you just call, like you just hit start and a call. So when after you're talking with somebody, when you hang up, it continues calling. Like you don't even have to do anything. So you can pause it, you can write notes. There's a like a box for you to write notes, and there's like a drop down where you choose from where there was no answer, if they say they want more information, if they say they're not interested. So like previously when I was working, we used Google Sheets. Like after what they said, we have to go to like the Excel or Google Sheet and write. They said this and that. Here, you can just write everything there. It's like a full. It's like a team. You know what I mean? So there are people that actually work. Not like I don't know what the position is called, but they're the ones that can, or maybe the system does it. To be honest, I don't know how the backend works because all I do is do the cold calling. And then you just have to report the amount of people that picked up, the amount of people that said yes or more information. We have to post that on Slack with the recordings. So there's another team. If they said they want more information, if they want to email to be sent to them or maybe a text, we post that on Slack and there's another team that does that, that sends the email and everything. So I mean, that makes it so much easier. And, you know, cold calling, I wouldn't say is an easy job because it's just something you do again and again. You're talking to people, like people could be rude to you and everything. But having this type of setup makes it easier and not boring and not, you know, it just makes it easier. You need to make it as much as possible easier so like the person, like the cold caller can do their job. You know, because your tone matters when you're talking to the client. If you're tired and if you're like you're calling them, you need to be in a good mood. So like you need the person that's doing the cold calling to be as comfortable as possible.
Amazing. I'm learning a lot. I'm diving deep into the cold calling world.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you've done lead generation, right? You've done cold calling. You're working as a virtual assistant. You've done social media management before. Um, I'll dig kind of ask you about some of the different things, but which one is your favorite from all the different kind of remote jobs that you've had?
The virtual assistant, definitely.
Okay. Um, give me a second. I want to hear about that, but give me one
Okay.
second. Okay, go for it. Tell me more. Like, so why do you prefer virtual assistant above all the other ones?
Well, as I mentioned, you get to learn a lot and you get to socialize. I would say, yeah, socialize and meet different. It depends, again, depends on who you're working for. But you're not doing the same thing every day. I think when you're doing the same exact thing every day, we'll get to the point where it's just, you know, you're just doing it. What's the word for it? Uh, you're just doing it by default, you know what I mean? But It's different because you really do get to do different things and every day, and you can see that you're actually making a difference or that there's an impact on the person you're working with, you know. You can tell that you're doing something. And for even for the future, you know, like my first virtual assistant role helped me for the next one because there are things that I've learned from it that I can do now, and then this one as well. And then it helps with your like public speaking and stuff, like especially with my current, I would say my current boss, since she have a lot of like clients, we can get on a Zoom call, and if she's not on, I'll be the one doing the introduction and everything. Like, so you do see yourself developing in a way as well because you're doing different things, you're doing things you've never done before, you're learning things. So that I personally like more.
Okay. And to be a good virtual assistant, what kind of qualities or skill sets do you need to have?
I would say communication is like you need to have a very strong communication skills, uh, organization skills, time management, and learning to work independently is, I would say, that's one of like the main point because not a lot of, I mean, from my experience, not a lot of people that hire virtual assistants to do like micromanaging. So you need to know and how to prioritize things, which comes first. You need to know how to again manage your time and working independently. Communication is key, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, good, good, good. So, what is your process? So let's say you're talking to a new client. Um, so is there a process to get them onboarded? Like what are the first steps in the process for you?
Uh, New
Okay,
clients
so
as well.
so
Mhm.
let's say you're starting to work with a new client. What
Mhm.
are the steps? So how do you start the relationship? How do you know what to do? Like what does the initial interaction, how does that work?
First, like I need to know what they're focusing on. As I mentioned, it depends on every client. What the jobs or the task you're gonna do is different on every client. So I need to like I've obviously have to get on a call with the client and I need to understand where they need help, how they've been working till now, what are the things they want me in, and then after I know what they need help with, I mean, depending on my experience, I'll suggest on ways on how to do it. And then, I mean, usually when I start with a new client, I would say for the first week or 2 weeks, we might have to have like a call every 2 days and something because, you know, just in order to get the process starting and see if we're working on, you know, the same page how they want me to do it because every client have especially if they have for the ones that have a virtual assistant before, they usually know how it goes and they'll be like this and this is what I want and this is how I want you to pick up things. For the clients that never had a virtual assistant, it's something like you both have to work on together to see if this one works or not. Do you want me help on this one? So it's basically like getting on a call with them and understanding where they need help and how I can help.
Okay, good. Um, yeah, this is going much better than I was hoping. This is a good conversation to have because we're kind of able to dig into a lot of the different areas and talk. Um, okay, and so I guess like in terms of um, like roles, do you uh, how many typically like how many clients would you end up having at a time, or ideally, like if you had to pick, how many hours would you work per client, and total, how many clients would you take on?
I've had experience working with three clients all at one time. One was full time and two was part time.
Okay,
So I would say I was working 8 plus 8, 16 hours. So I personally have that experience, but I can like it depends on what the client wants. If the clients want me full time or part time. Since I
okay,
already have part time, I would work for I'm okay with one full time job
okay,
or two clients that are like 4 hour, 4 hour.
okay. Because I'm kind of curious. So typically, um, how many hours is the typical like part-time, when you do part-time, is it 20 hours a week? Is it less sometimes? Like what has been your experience?
I've never worked for like it's usually 4 hours a week, 4 hours a day. But like it's not again, it's not like I have to work 4 hours Monday and 4 hours Tuesday. I mean, again, it depends on the client. I can work for like 8 hours Monday, not work Tuesday. Depends on the task and the project I'm assigned on. But I have never worked less than 4 hours a day. Like that's the agreement
Okay.
usually. But I don't know how your clients are or what typically.
I- I'm 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 kind of trying to understand as well to some extent
Mhm.
because um, we we have been talking about having different packages, starting from 10 hours in a week, which would be what, 2 hours a day,
Mhm.
all the way up to full time, which is like 40 hours in a week. And the way we've structured it is the less the hours, the more expensive it is. So like if it's 40 hours, um, right now we're doing about, I think, 12.50 an hour Canadian though. So full time 12.50 an hour, which is let me think. It's about the Canadian dollar right now is not as strong. So
Right.
uh, to USD, it's about $9.20. And then of the $9.20, we pay 75% to our virtual assistants. So we take 25%. We do plan, like, as we grow, if we end up having good scale, that we're gonna give more. 25% is what we take right now. That's what we're starting with. So it's like $697 an hour US is what our virtual assistants would get. But that would be at like the bottom end. So what happens is, um, I think for 10 hours a week, it's about 1750 an hour because it goes up for if you're
Oh,
taking less hours. So 1750 is 1288 US, and then for the talent, um, it's 966. So you go from like 7 almost to 9 or 10
yeah.
when the hours are less. So that's kind of the way we're mitigating it. Um, so I guess the question I have is in line with, um, what has been your experience in terms of the market? What would you say is the range for virtual assistant pay?
So what I see the difference from Ethiopia and here is when you're in Africa, I mean, one of, the ways that people actually like reach out for you is because you're less, I mean, you're not as expensive as people abroad or like in the UK, America, or like in Europe. So back when I was in Ethiopia, I guess like I was getting five. I mean, my cold calling job was the one that I only got independently. So I was getting $5 per hour for the cold calling. The virtual assistant, the one that, my current boss, we started off with $10 an hour. So now that I'm here and everything has changed and I've worked with her over a year, it changed and moved to like $17 per hour. But when I started, it was $10 per hour. So here, like when I was looking up jobs on LinkedIn and see like the starting range is like from $15 from a dollar perspective into 25 to like 30, 40, depends on the client and it depends on the company.
Okay,
So I would say like the range is about what I mentioned, like from 15 or maybe 10 to 25, 30, like it goes up that, but like not less, especially for virtual assistant, not less. But I think it's cheaper when it's cold calling and, uh, lead generation and stuff like that.
okay. So those would tend to be cheaper, and then starting from somewhere around $9, $10 all the way to, depending on experience and location.
Yeah.
Um, so but then on the top end, and this is actually a question I have, is starting, let's say, from 20, $25 an hour. Um, is that for outsourced virtual assistants, or is it for local as well? Because I know sometimes people are looking for a local virtual assistant. s- or do you feel like even like people doing work remotely, some of them can make 25, $30 an hour?
Yeah, like from here or from Ethiopia, which
Um, Both, I guess. Like let's say from Ethiopia.
from from Ethiopia, it's hard to get those jobs. Like what I'm saying is it's so hard to get like past the interview because not a lot of people, as you mentioned, know a lot about Africa. I remember like applying to like different companies when I was in Ethiopia and I would qualify for the position, but then most of them don't even know where Ethiopia is. Most of them don't want to take the risk of hiring someone from Africa, but these positions were like $30 and more, 25, 20 and more. But my experience from applying jobs here is yes, it is possible to get
Because
like
you're in Poland, right?
yes,
Because you have moved locations. Okay.
yes.
That does
So
make a
it is
lot more sense
possible.
to me. Yeah.
It has a big like difference. I didn't expect to have this amount of because
Really?
it's not about you qualifying, it's about where you're at. So like it depends. It really
S-
depends. I mean, now that if they Google, I remember I was on an interview and then she didn't know I was from Ethiopia. Then I told her like she asked me like mid like the interview she asked me I told her I'm from Ethiopia and she's like huh I thought you're here in the US. I was like no I'm from Ethiopia. So we were talking about like the payment plan and stuff and then she was like it's in Africa, right? Yeah, can okay, let me just Google. And then the first thing that came up was like how dangerous it is, how you shouldn't go, how there's war going. And so, since the media is not, if you Google Ethiopia, that's what you get these days. So, especially people that are not really familiar with Ethiopia or like talents in Africa, I would say it's a bit hard. But there are jobs. Like, I have friends, I mean, especially like in the IT department, I have friends that were making like $7,000 per month, $4,000 per month, especially in IT, more than the virtual assistants. Like, there are like software developers and all that. But most of them moved to Dubai because of, they think that like it's way easier to just go there and do things there. So I think since a lot of people don't know much about Africa and Ethiopia, they don't really give the chance to the people that are there.
Okay. So sometimes people would move to Dubai, and then because now their location is Dubai, they
Yeah,
get more visibility, and that
yeah,
people are more willing to hire them, even though they didn't change, right? They're the same
yeah, same
person.
person.
Okay, so you found being in Poland, it's a lot easier to market yourself for virtual assistant roles because of where you are.
Yeah, and even for the payment and everything, it's like the way we use currency back in Ethiopia to get paid in dollars and everything. It's not easy. It's not really easy to like get paid directly through your bank and everything. So here in Poland, it's everything is easier. When I was working, as I said, for the cold calling position, like the company was in US, I was getting paid through PayPal and Wise. So like, these things are not really available in Ethiopia. Like it's you don't you can't directly get the money. Like it has to be like processed somewhere else and you get to get paid in there. So but here everything is easier when they ask for your, address and everything and for your bank information and everything. Like it's easier here. I found it easier here. Even in Dubai, since Dubai is very close and easier to move to from Ethiopia. A lot of people do. Two of my friends moved there like a year ago.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Just interesting. Yeah. Okay. So what else? What else do I want to know? What else am I curious about? Um, okay. So um, is there a lot of talent in Ethiopia when it comes to, let's say, all the different categories that you mentioned? So there is um, cold calling, there's lead generation, there's virtual assistants, and then social media managers. If you had to kind of rank where the talent is, how many people in different categories, what would be your impression?
Okay, so I would say cold caller is easier to get because a lot of people English is good. You don't need like an experience for that. All they have to do is read script and have a good accent. And usually, I mean, there's a lot of people that graduate and have literally no job or having a hard time getting a job, especially the fresh graduates and like I would say the younger ones. It's so much easier to get someone that do the cold calling. I mean, at least that's what I saw in MMCY. They were hiring people with no experience, and if you've been in Ethiopia, that's very hard to get. Like trying to get a job with zero experience is probably the hardest thing you can do. So this just gives them off, and a lot of people have good English. So getting a cold caller like is so much easier. And then I would say lead generation, because lead generation, I mean, you just have to set up things and then show them how it's done. So I would say cold calling, lead generation, virtual assistant, and then IT. I mean, I would say people in IT know a whole lot more about it than about like working virtually than anybody else, because a lot of people that I know that is in IT knows that there's better money or good money out elsewhere, and they're familiar.
And when you say IT, are you referring to software developers? Are you referring to social media man? Like, what kind of roles would you classify as IT?
I would say more like the software developer, website develop, like on that side of IT now. I mean, social media, of course, because a lot of people, like especially in Addis, a lot of people is familiar with social media and everything. So it's easier to get someone that does social media and digital marketing now, because especially and again, the younger generation is more focused on those things. So I would say, yeah, I would say actually cold caller, social media managers, lead generation, and then software developers.
Okay, so that would be like your assumption when it comes to how many talent, and then virtual assistants, where would they fit? So somewhere in that space. So
Where
maybe
did I put? I said wait, I said cold
cold
caller,
caller,
social media, and then comes virtual, no,
virtual,
lead generation, and then a virtual assistant.
and then on the other end. So in that category, you'd have more talent. So essentially, there's less software developers and web developers, but then they know how to get remote work. They are now more savvy. They're like more active in that area.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Um, Interesting. So if you were me, right, you're gonna go into business in Ethiopia. You're gonna start a business. Um, finding remote work for people, what would be your focus? Where would you start? What would you do? Where do you
I would
think is
start from the cold callers, to be honest. Like after getting the clients, of course. Like I don't know how on that end, I don't know how it goes. Like I don't know how you get your clients and all that, but I think it's so much easier to sell the cold callers than anything else. And a lot of companies, where they're in the US or anything, since even the people in the US don't really want to do that part, like everyone's just tired of the cold calling and way cheaper. Like it's way cheaper to do it in Africa, or a lot of people, do it in India, Philippines. That's what they're known for. But like I've worked with Philippines and our accent is way better. Like you can tell that they have an accent and everything, but they don't, I think they don't care. Like a lot of people are known for the like, I mean, Indians are known for that, if for the cold calling and everything. So here you do get the good accent and like can barely tell with most people. So I would say marketing cold callers is so much easier. It's easier to find. I mean, if we're talking in like how to find the candidates, it's easier to find, and I think it's also easier to find companies that want to outsource as well. I mean I'm not really sure on that end, but if you're trying to go to Ethiopia and trying to find or think about which candidates or which talent to market more, I would say I would start with cold caller, and also
mm,
the social media, digital marketing as well, and virtual assistant. But the first thing I would go for is the cold calling.
okay? So you'd go for cold callers first because, as you said, it's a lot easier to get those people in. Um, it doesn't require them to know a lot other than reading through their script, right? Um, okay, so interesting. And then next, you'd move to social media managers.
Yes, because a
Okay.
lot of people are familiar with that in Ethiopia.
I guess the question I have is, give me a sec. Okay, so I guess I do have a question. I am interested in knowing more. Um, so social media managers, and this is something that I've been thinking about, and that is you have people in Ethiopia, um, right? The social media or the environment might be different as opposed to, social media being done, let's say, in the United States, right? In the US or Canada. Uh, do you find that, do you think that because of the cultural differences or the way business is done, that social media managers in Ethiopia will have a hard time doing the work remotely, I mean?
Um, I don't I don't think so, especially if they're already doing the social, I mean, if they're familiar with doing it for local companies, I don't think it would be that big of a difference. I mean, again, it depends on the type of company you're working with. The thing about social media is you can't really, it's always different for whatever it is that you're working for, and it's very broad as well. It could be the contact creating, like there's a lot to it than just, managing the social media. When I was working at EBS, I was not like responsible for doing the content creating or anything. I was just responsible to, since it was a big company and they have different social media platforms, I was just managing that. I was the one responsible for like posting maybe the episode of the show or the movies, but and just maybe I was responsible for doing the caption, but anything else was just done and given to me. I was responsible to just replying to comments and everything that was coming through, and that was it. So there's different type of um, I would say roles when it comes to social media. It really depends on the company you're working for. But if they're already working as a social media manager, I don't think it would be that hard. To be honest.
Okay, good. How about digital marketing? Well, I've noticed like digital marketing, you need to know different tools, you need to know different ways to go about it, and then the landscape in Ethiopia maybe not, it's not as competitive as it is in Ethiopia or Canada, in US or Canada. What is your feeling? Do you feel like that might be a challenge?
Not a challenge, but it might be hard to get that talent. Like you need to get people that is already certified and certain of, there's different courses. So you can't, I mean, social media, I don't think it's something you can do by, experience, but because you're passionate about it and everything. But I think when it comes to digital marketing, as you mentioned, there's different tools and different things you need to actually learn. So I would say you need to be able to get people that are certified in certain courses. There's millions of courses out there that, about digital marketing. So I guess the goal would be to find someone who's already certified in one or two of the courses that's out there.
Okay. Um, Interesting. I'm going through all the thoughts. I'm like, okay, what else do I want to ask Ricky? Because I'm learning a lot, and being new to the whole space, I've been away from Ethiopia for a bit, about 8 years. Not that long, but it's a bit long, and it's yeah, just Ethiopia is a lot different than what it was 8 years ago. Um, so I'm always excited to learn more. Um, okay, so you've worked in different, like an outsourcing company, um, and they're set up, they're doing the stuff. Um, is the typical clients they had um, like big companies that were just looking for sales development representatives or people to cold call and stuff? Or was it more like software developers that they were connecting with clients? Like, what was their thing?
So MMCY was pretty big. So he there was a lot of big clients, especially like I mean not a lot of even it was just I guess my client and there's like two other three clients that were just individual and was just looking for like one person to work with. But it was like usually was bigger companies. So like he used to I think. they were working with McKinsey, McDonald's. It was just a big company. Like he had big clients, especially on the like account management side. I mean, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know much about it, but like C-Vent. So, it's more of like one client telling the other client, like, it was like more of like what was the word for it? Word of
Word of mouth.
it was not more, yeah, word of mouth. It was not like the marketing and everything. It was more like, working with one good company and them recommending you, and just it turns into a very big company.
Um, this is
Yeah.
exciting. Um, hmm. Do you have any questions for me?
Um, yeah, I mean, what are the clients like? I mean, the clients you've had till now, or the clients you're working with,
Okay.
what are they? What do they like to specialize on?
So I guess most of the clients, and I think I was telling you earlier, we're more focused on software development. So the clients
Oh,
I had, I think there wasn't really a clear process. I was just networking and then I just landed some clients. I just ended up having clients. Um, so I'm in this space where I'm kind of trying to understand what kind of clients want my services, right? What kind of clients want my services? Because you want it to be repeatable. You want to find, okay, this person is the kind of client who's interested in my services, and go out and find 1,000 of those clients, right? Um, so I'm still in that journey of like figuring it out. Um, yeah, but right now I'm trying like to see if there's any traction in the startup founder, the startup CEO space. I'm trying to see if there's any traction in small businesses, small to mid-sized businesses. Um, but I don't really know yet um, what kind of company or what kind of business would use, let's say, a social media manager or a virtual assistant. So I still have a lot of work to do to figure that out. And that's part of the journey, at least for me right now.
okay.
Okay, any other questions? Nope, that's
No.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, I think I dug into a lot of the stuff that I wanted to dig into, so I would stop the recording